All right, we're going to go ahead and recreate this image, and the reason I chose this is because it has a lot of good elements that if you learn how to do this, the skills required to do something like this is applicable to a lot of graphics when it comes to creating thumbnails, when it comes to creating a cover for your podcast, if you need to just do a Facebook cover or a story on Instagram. The skills here are repeatable in all of those tasks. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I'm using Artboards simply because what I did was I just grabbed this from Envato Elements. So I have a subscription to Envato Elements, but one of the things I like to do is just grab an image and see if I can recreate it. And that's how I practice, and this is how you should practice as well. So I'm using Artboards simply because I have a color palette, and I went on unsplash.com to grab a few images here. And the reason I like Artboards is because I have everything right here where I can work with. I can kind of see my source, get my colors, and have my images that I can grab really quickly. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm just going to take this and create a new artboard. First things first, we have this gradient background. We're going to work from the back all the way to the front. So we have this gradient background, and that is where my color splash comes in here. So I have my palette already, so I can come here and go to Artboard. I'm going to rename this. Let's call this project. We'll just call it project for the sake of convenience. And I'm going to move it down. And I'm moving it down because I like to see all my layers here. And I have a special workspace because I like to have this long special. I like to have my layers where I can really have them typically there over to the side. So in yours, your workspace would probably be set to essentials, and so your layers would be over here, but you can see how cramped it is. So I created a workspace where my layers are over to the side over here. So one of the things you'll learn with this is that create your own workspace to make everything more efficient for you. All right, first things first. Now, when it comes to artboards, the one thing when you create layers, make sure you select the artboard. Okay, you want to make sure that artboard is selected, because if I don't, let's say I'm here and I go with a solid color, you can see that solid color it went over all of the artboards. Okay. What I want to do is make sure my artboard is selected, go with the gradient, and now this gradient, or whatever layer I have, only applies to that specific artboard. So let's go here, and I am going to take a gradient, and we'll just kind of pick one that has the colors in so I can kind of see what side is what. So we're going from this light to the dark. So this light here is this, and my dark is here. And I'm going to use this again, so let me go ahead and call this podcast gradient and go ahead and put it there, so because I'm going to use it again. So all right, so that's the first one. The next layer is this here. Is kind of it's like a straight line circle, so I'm going to go ahead, create a new layer, and let's let's get some guides here. Let's see where we're at, what we're working with. All right. So I'm gonna just make I'm holding down the shift key so I get a perfect circle. And I'm just gonna fill it with white for right now. Okay. Then I'm going to have another one, and I'm just gonna go here. And this I want the rectangle, and just for ease I'll just kind of come here and fill that with white. Alright, and now I can just move them into place where I want. See that it's not exactly the same size, so let me kind of resize it so it fits nicely. All right. I'm going to clean that up afterwards, but that is about, let's see where they should go here. About right there. So let me go ahead and merge these two. Select it, and I'm going to go ahead and get my gradient, and let's see, so it's really dark here, so it looks like I'm about, let's go the opposite way here. That is fairly close enough. All right. I'm going to do elliptical tool, and I'm just going to click on it, and let's start with 150 by 150. Size it up. It actually is about this big. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead, fill it with a gradient, and the gradient you can see is this dark to the light pink, so let's go ahead and change that. Okay. All right. So this, it's going the opposite way. So let's go minus 90. All right. All right. So there's that one. We're simply going to duplicate it. All right. So here's the this is going to be the large white border. And again, I'm going to take the stroke off. It's just going to be white. Come here, take that stroke off. All right. Okay. So we're just going to resize it, and if we go to 97, let's make it a little bit. Let's go. Let's lock this and make it 95. Maybe 92. Okay, yeah, let's make it 92. All right. All right. All right, and now we need the placeholder because this border, we're going to duplicate this one more time. I'm going to transform it. And we'll make it, let's go 95. We'll make it 95% of this. And just so we know that this is for the we're going to give it a gray. Okay. And now let's group all of these and we'll call it large image. Okay. So there's our large image, and then we can just Control T. We won't go halfway, we'll go just a little bit off so it covers there. All right. Now that we have this, let's go ahead and duplicate it. Call it this. It's going to be the small image. All right. Control T. Right. Something like that. Okay, so now that we have that, let's get the dots, and we're going to use shapes to do that. Now we could draw this out, but a better practice is let's go ahead and create a pattern. So I'm going to go 60 and 60 because I want larger. Typically I would go 100 to 100, but I'm going to go 60 and 60 this time. I'm going to go to new guide, grid layout, and I want 2 and 2. If you don't see the columns and rows, typically the rows is not checked. So you go ahead and check that, 2 and 2. If you have gutters, you want to go ahead and turn off the gutters. No information on margins or anything like that. All right. I'm going to take my elliptical and I'm just going to here in the center, and I'm going to go 18 and 18. Get that right in the center. I'm going to change the fill to black. And the stroke would be none. Okay. Now, two things I can do. What I want is I want to create this pattern in the corners. If I wanted to create something like polka dots, I would create a duplicate here. Let's go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and create a duplicate. And then I will go filter, other, offset, convert to smart object. And because we have 30 and 30, 60 by 60, we're going to go 30 and 30. Make sure you have wraparound selected. And now we have our four corners, and the one in the center creates a polka dot look. But I don't want a polka dot look. What I want is just the four corners. So I'm not going to duplicate it. I'm going to filter, other, offset. I go to 30 and 30, and you can see I no longer get the polka dot look. All right. I'm going to go ahead and delete this bottom layer, and now we have this, and now we can just define the pattern. So we go to File, Define Pattern. I'm going to call it vid1. Let's call it podcast dots. Okay. Okay, so now that we have our pattern set, here's the thing about the artboards and working with adjustment layers. There are times where the adjustment layer covers the entire, all of the artboards. So if I were to come here and just select this, go to pattern, select my pattern. Now if I rasterize this layer and go Control T, you can see this cover all of the artboards. Okay, you can work around it, but I'd rather not. So one of the things I do is that I will create a layer, and where I want the pattern, I will use my marquee tool, and I will kind of draw out the pattern, and I'll make it larger than I really need, and then I'll come in, use the pattern adjustment layer. And the reason I'm using the pattern adjustment layer is because if I just do a fill, what I don't have is any control over the scale. So I want to get the scale down to about, let's say, 60%. So those are about the size dots that I want. But you can see I have control over the scale. And now when I rasterize the layer, I can go ahead and rasterize the layer. I'm actually going to apply this layer mask. And I'll get what I want, because then I'll mask out what I don't need. And since in this case I want go 3 and 4, technically this is all I need, but just for the sake of me, I'm going to go a little bit more. I'm going to use few more just to change it up. I'm going to hit Control, hit Alt and mask. the mask, and now you can see I have that. And then I can now go in and change the color. I'm going to do a solid color, keep it white. And clip it to them. And I'm doing this so if I want to change the color of the dots, I can easily change the color of the dots. And I'm going to group this. Call it dots. Move it to where I want it. Same thing for the circle here. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to create the circle. Now I know that it's going off to the side, but I like work with a full circle. So I'm going to come here, go to pattern. I've already created the same thing I had before, just with a line. Zoom in here so we can change the I think we're going to want more, so let's take it up to about 140%. And I'm going to do the same thing, rasterize the layer, apply the layer mask, and then add a solid color adjustment layer and clip it. Go ahead and group it. And now we have our line circle. And we'll move it off to the side here. And I'm going to just change the opacity down. It's a little subtle. Okay. Final thing is that we have our text, and on something like this, if we wanted to, let's change the guide so we know where everything is at. We have one line here. We have one line here. Okay. All right. So we can go ahead and create those lines. They are using the gradient, the same as the circle here. So if we wanted to, we can just simply come in, take that gradient. We're going to use the stroke, and we're going to use the gradient. We'll come here and we have this. And we're just going to create the line, I believe. Let's make the stroke, let's make it about 10 so we can kind of see what's happening here. I really don't see the gradient. Let's go ahead and make this. Okay, there we go. Now we can see it. We'll go ahead and duplicate it. Move it to here. And now it's a matter of putting in, let's go ahead and put in the images. Now to make this easier, now we could just simply, here we have our large image. Let's go ahead. Let's bring that over, and we will then, let's drag our large image over into here. Okay. And we're going to put it here and then crop it. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. Okay, take that out of there. We should be in the large. And crop it. Okay, if we want to move it, we could kind of move him around, resize. Okay. Come over here and grab this image. And again, we will, now we can come here, resize that. And now it's just a matter of putting in the text. So let's go ahead and close these, and we'll create a group for text and start putting some layers in. All right. I'm just going to use Roboto. Let's go here. Reset. Go here, and we'll just we'll make it 16, maybe go up to 18, make it bold. All right. Take that, we'll make it a little bit smaller. Okay. All right, so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just now adding in where I want my text at. We can go out and grab some images here. So if you wanted to do that, grab your text here. So if I just were to kind of put in my standard or something like that. But you guys get the idea. Now it's just a matter of adding in text to do what you needed to do. Okay, so once the project is done, to export this one artboard, we just highlight the artboard, the project. You go to File, Export, Export Artboard Files. It's going to bring up this option. Here's my folder, and I'm just going to name it Final. Spell Final correctly with the dash, and run. Okay, we get a message that it's done. If we go to File and Open, here is the final project in its own separate PSD, and now you can work with it with all of the layers involved.